Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Blake? What? Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is right here, everyone. Welcome back for more SPTV, where every day's a great day not to be in a cult. Guys, is Scientology still even a thing? How is Scientology still even a thing? I was inspired to do this video this afternoon by two videos I saw this morning. One from Scientology Audit and one from Isabella Barron. And I wanted to share them with you, and I wanted to share some thoughts with you. So first of all, is Scientology still even a thing? The answer is barely, just barely. I've done some videos in the past laying out in detail how there are only, at the most generous number you could possibly come up with is 35,000 Scientologists in the entire world. And Scientology is shrinking very rapidly. I've been meaning to do an update video to that, revising the numbers. The thing is, I'm hesitant to use a figure that's too low because it seems unbelievable. The truth is there could be closer to 20, 25,000 Scientologists in the world, 15,000 Scientologists in the world, but that number sounds so absurdly low that I'm hesitant to use a number that low. And so I try to be as absolutely generous as possible. But I am going to update that video soon. And the truth is, no matter what Scientology announced, no matter how they tried to hype it, if they said L. Ron Hubbard himself has reincarnated, we're holding a massive event in the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, all Scientologists everywhere in the world should come. We're giving everyone an amnesty. Everyone who's ever been declared can come back. Families can reunite. OT 9 and 10 is being released. L. Ron Hubbard himself is going to MC the event. You could not scrape together more than 35,000 Scientologists in the entire world. People are always shocked when I explain to them how that's true. And yet every ex-Scientologist in the world, when they look at the numbers, would be like, yeah, that's totally true. And somehow David Miscavige convinces Scientologists that there are 10 to 15 million Scientologists in the world, and that Scientology is the fastest growing religious movement on earth. He actually convinces them that this is true. Such is the totality of cult mind control that exists in Scientology. So how is Scientology still even a thing? One of the best answers that I have is the secrecy. Scientologists aren't allowed to know what Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard, Scientologists really believe at the upper levels. And if the Scientologists at the lower levels were allowed to know what Scientology really is and what they really believe at the upper levels, most people would leave. I was inspired to discuss this and to give some examples of this by a video that Scientology Audit did in one of his most recent, in front of the Scientology Test Center on Hollywood Boulevard, where he's explaining to a bunch of young people what Scientologists really believe. And as I was watching this, it just dawned on me that these young kids that he's talking to now know more about Scientology than most Scientologists. And that if children who were in Scientology, who were as young as the kids that William is talking to in the video, if those Scientologist kids saw this video of William talking to these non-Scientology kids, and if they went in and asked some Scientology adults or some Scientology staff members who knew better, if that was true, they would be told, no, it's not true. Okay. And I have some advice. At the end of this video, I'm going to give some advice for all non-Scientologists out there who might have some Scientology friends who don't actually know the truth of what Scientologists believe and what they can do about it to hopefully help those people leave Scientology at some point in the future. Okay, let's see. Okay, so first, let me just show you William's channel for anyone newer who may not know. Scientology Audit, Streets LA. His name is William Gude. This is his YouTube channel. He's also prolific on TikTok. He's got the same screen name on TikTok. The video that I'm actually going to share with you today was posted to Instagram just because that's the link that somebody sent me. But, you can find him on all the platforms. Okay, let's look at this video. Check it out.
Where's everybody at? Twilla, what are you doing, Twilla?
Hold on.
What's going on?
The TikTok
How you doing?
It's a cult.
Oh, so that's a new recruiting guy right there?
Yeah.
That's a new guy. He's trying to sneak a new one out here, huh? It was created by this guy named L. Ron Hubbard. He was a science fiction writer, a real weirdo. He wants to abolish psychiatry. And he said 78 million years ago, there was overcrowding in another galaxy. So they froze 1 billion people, brought them to Earth, and dropped them in that volcano over there in Hawaii, the popsicle people. Then dropped a bomb on the volcano, and their spirits rose up. They captured the spirits and brainwashed the spirits, flung them out, and the spirits are all attached to you. And those things cause everything that's bad in your life, those alien spirits. So he wants to help you get rid of those spirits. But you have to pay like $200,000-$300,000. Or you can give your life to them.
For a billion-year contract?
The billion-year contract, they're Sea Org members. They're the paramilitary organization within Scientology. Sign a billion-year contract. Twilla right there is the director.
All right.
Yeah, unfortunately. You know, all are welcome, but not really, right?
Yeah.
You were able to see in those windows a little while ago, but all of a sudden you can't, right? They blurred the windows out. It's kind of weird stuff. They work 110 hours a week.
Yeah.
They don't get paid. They get a $47 a week allowance, but they have to buy their own toiletries, their own soap, and all that stuff. They live in a building on the other side of town. It's like an old, decrepit hospital building. Sleep 4 to 6 per room in bunk beds. Grown people, right? Not kids. It's not like it's summer camp or something like that. This is grown folks. They have no internet connection, no cell phones, no TVs, no computers. So they have no connection with the outside world. Don't have any contact with their family. At best, they're able to email. And if you email, that's all being screened. So they're completely disconnected. A lot of them from overseas. They come here on religious visas and they take their visas away. And they're working 110 hours a week and they can't leave. That sounds like slavery, right?
Yeah.
How old are you guys?
14.
14. Let me ask you something. Do you think it's right for a religious organization, if you would come over here earlier and I wasn't coming around, or if there was no beef, they would have let you come in. They would have tried recruiting you. You think it's right for a religious organization, cult, to recruit children without their
Yeah,
parents?
dude tried to hand me a slip before too.
Try to hand it to you, right? Now, shouldn't they at least ask for your parents' permission on that?
I absolutely love it. I love how knowledgeable Streets is now about Scientology. And so like I know it, so these kids are like 14, 15 years old. If there were, if Scientologists who were 14 or 15 years old were confronted with that information that Streets is sharing with these youngsters, those young Scientologists would say, the reason you dislike Scientology is because you're being fed lies about Scientology. That is not what Scientologists believe. That is not true. That's not in any of the materials. And you're not lying. You're just misinformed. It's so strange. It is so strange to have a so-called religious group where 90% of the members aren't even allowed to know what Scientologists really believe. Because this information that's been put out into the world, first it was on the internet, but this is back when the internet was not quite as big. Then it was on South Park. It's been in many documentaries. It's been in TV shows. It's all over the internet. This information that what Scientologists really believe is that a galactic supreme ruler overlord named Xenu, the head of the Galactic Confederacy, was solving a overpopulation problem, called half the population in for tax audits, froze them all in glycol, loaded them aboard DC-8 space planes, had them shipped to Earth, dropped in volcanoes, blown up with hydrogen bombs, and that those beings of those alien beings, now very sick and crazy and disoriented, are now all over the earth and are stuck to our bodies, and that the reactive minds, which is a Scientology term, the reactive minds of those sick beings that are stuck to us is what is causing all of our problems. That is what Scientologists actually believe. And one of the reasons that Scientology is still a thing, although just barely, is that most Scientologists are not allowed to know that that is what Scientologists really believe. Now, Obviously, when Scientologists get up to those levels and finally find out that that is what Scientologists believe, some of them, many of them still choose to stay, but they have an awful lot of sunk time and sunk money and now sunk family connections and business connections that make it hard to leave. It is truly my belief that if all lower level and young Scientologists were informed in a way that they found believable, that this really truly is what Scientologists believe at the upper levels, most of them would not continue on with Scientology once they were old enough to be able to make up their minds for themselves. And if you are a non-Scientologist who has a Scientologist friend, you might ask them, hey, is that stuff, what about that stuff in Scientology about the volcanoes and the hydrogen bombs and the body things? Is that true? You're probably going to be able to get a read from them on how they respond to you, whether they know it's true but have to lie about it. Because once they find out it's true, you're also not allowed to talk about it. Whether they know it's true and they're not allowed to talk about it, or whether they don't know it's true. You can probably get a read from them whether they seem like they're acting offended or whether they seem like they genuinely think you're crazy to think such a thing. I can tell you, when I was in Scientology from the age of 4 to 34, every time I heard someone mention something about body Thetans, I mean, Xenu wasn't a big deal because Scientologists believe in aliens everywhere. So the idea that there's some, galactic ruler somewhere is not a big deal to a Scientologist. But this idea of body Thetans, I always completely rejected any of this because I was like, these guys don't even know what they're talking about. I'm like, they don't even know enough about Scientology to know what a Thetan is. Because in Scientology, the word body Thetan, that's a prohibited word. You're not allowed to say that word. That word only exists on the upper levels. A lower level Scientologist has never heard the word body Thetan. So in lower level Scientology, the Scientology's word for the spirit is Thetan. There's no such thing as a body Thetan. A Thetan is, we're spirits, we're Thetans, we occupy bodies. No one's ever heard the word body Thetan until you get to operating Thetan level 3. So in Scientology, a Thetan is just a regular spirit that occupies a body. There's one Thetan per body. But a body Thetan is one of these spirits that got blown up in the volcanoes 75 million years ago. They're called body Thetans or BTs. And they're called that because they're stuck to your body. They don't occupy your body. They don't animate your body. That's you. But a BT is stuck to your body. So I completely rejected any information that anyone ever tried to share with me or that I ever heard, like in South Park, about Xenu and the body Thetans. Because I was like, these guys don't even know what they're talking about. It turns out they did know what they were talking about. I was the one who didn't know what I was talking about. And when I first read on the internet what was on the OT levels, I was very angry. I was angry and I was disappointed because I had spent my entire life thinking these were some magical, mysterious, super powerful things that you couldn't even conceive of what they were. They were so magical and powerful, these levels, and that doing these levels would basically turn you into some kind of a spiritual super being where you could go in and out of your body at will. And you could, control the physical universe with like telekinesis practically and all this kind of stuff. And so when I read what was actually on the OT levels, I was like, what? That's it? And it wasn't even that as a Scientologist, I couldn't wrap my mind around how Scientologists could believe such a thing. I couldn't wrap my mind around this is what's on these all-powerful, supposedly all-powerful levels. So if you're a non-Scientologist who has a friend that is a Scientologist, you might do something like this. Hey, what about all that volcano stuff, that volcanoes and the spirits and the hydrogen bombs and all that? And like I said, they either know and they're lying to you or they don't know and they think you're crazy. You might do this though. Let's say they respond to you by like, that is so ridiculous. That is so ridiculous. It's not on the OT levels. You'd be like, well, have you done the OT levels? And let's say they say, no, I haven't done the OT levels, but I promise you that's not what's on them. You might say something like this. Well, let me ask you this. If you eventually get onto the OT levels and you find out that that is what the OT levels are, will you be disappointed? And just see what they say. Just see what they say. Because I'll tell you what, if you have that conversation with them, no matter how they respond, no matter how they react at the time, at some point in the future, when they get on to those OT levels, if they get onto those OT levels, but when, and they find out that you were right all along, way back when they had that conversation with you, that's going to impact them in some very meaningful ways. It's going to impact them. They're going to remember the time that they probably told you how disappointed they would be if that's what was really on the OT levels. And they're going to remember however long ago that conversation happened. And it's going to occur to them that you, as a non-Scientologist, and everyone else in the world who's ever seen South Park or a variety of other shows, knew more about Scientology than they did this entire time. And not only that, but that all the Scientologists in their life who had done the OT levels had been lying to them about it the entire time. It's going to make them feel a particular way. So that might be something you consider doing if you have some Scientologist friends. And I think you actually will be able to ask, if you have a Scientologist friend, you ask them this question, you ask them about that, you can ask them, have you done the OT levels? And they will tell you. That's not something a Scientologist will lie about. They'll be like, because if they know, they have to lie. But if they know that also, if they tell you they've done the OT levels, that also makes them, in their minds, more of an authority to you. So if you're like, hey, what about that volcano, hydrogen bomb, alien stuff? Is that true? They might be like, I've done the OT levels, and no, that's not true. All right, you can stop having the conversation with them if that's how it goes, because they're just going to keep lying to you. But if someone says, no, I haven't done the OT levels, but that's not what is on them, you might go, how do you know that's not what's on them if you haven't done them? And they'll come up with some answer. And that's when you hit them with well, when you eventually get on the OT levels, if that is what is on them, will you be upset? Will that be disappointing to you? No matter how that conversation goes, it will affect that person, their thoughts about Scientology later on in their life when they do finally get onto the OT levels, if they ever get onto the OT levels. Okay, so that brings me to the second video that I wanted to share with you from Isabella Barron. I did an interview with Isabella on my channel. You guys can just search Isabella Barron, Baron, growing up in Scientology. You'll find the interview that we did. It's actually a 4-hour interview. And I just looked the other day. I don't even think I ever went back and put in any chapter breaks or timestamps. So I'm going to do that soon. But Isabella, she started joining us in downtown Clearwater for our weekly protests. And she's going to start live streaming the protests on TikTok. And she has been doing a bunch of Scientology content on TikTok. And I wanted to show you her TikTok account is right here. And I want to share with you a video that she just did. And this is called something like, the name of this video is something like, How I Found Out That I Was in a Cult. And I thought it was such an interesting concept for a third generation Scientologist to have to find out that they were in a cult. Because you think, well, if you're in a cult, you'd know you're in a cult, right? No. And Isabella's story is interesting. It doesn't specifically have to do with the OT levels, but it still has to do with this idea of secrecy and confidentiality and not realizing the truth of what it is that you're involved in and how your eyes eventually get opened up to that truth. And I thought this story was super interesting, and I want to share it with you. So here we go.
Story. So this is the story of how I found out I grew up in a cult, Scientology. So I've talked about this briefly on my channel before about how I was already having like doubts about Scientology because they fucked me over so much. Like after I was forced to get married and forced to take on a bunch of debt, I was really like, what is there to like about Scientology at this point? Because at this point I was jaded. And it wasn't until I started dating this guy, kind of like after I fell off lines with Scientology, they like to say, when I wasn't doing any like current courses, I met this guy named Jeremy Lore. And I was dating him briefly. He was a little bit crazy. He was also a Scientology kid, third generation like me. He was the one who showed me that Scientology was a fraud. One of the biggest rules in Scientology is you're not allowed to look online about anything in regards to Scientology. One of their beliefs is if you find out like these OT materials before you're ready for it, like with an auditor, you will drop the body and die. So this is how they keep you brainwashed the whole time, because they're like, oh, if you look online, you might read the OT levels and you might just drop the body or get cancer and die. Hence why I never did my own research on Scientology. It was always a huge no-no, and I never really looked at like negative stuff on Scientology. And whenever something would pop up on my phone, I would immediately swipe out of it, and I would be like terrified, like, oh my God, I can't read this. So fast forward, I'm dating Jeremy Lore, and he actually shows me what OT3 is, which is the whole Xenu story. And I was like, seriously, like, this is what we believe in? And I was so scared that I was going to die or something bad was going to happen to me. And then when I realized nothing bad happened to me, I was like, that's strange. I was like, it was literally all a lie this whole time. So I wouldn't look this up and find out that it's a fraud. Then I started going on like a deep dive of just looking up everything about Scientology. Because at this point, I hadn't seen actually like real stuff on Scientology, just what they've fed me all these years growing up in Scientology. I ended up binge watching the Leah Rememi Aftermath show on Netflix. And when I tell you, I was floored when I found that show, because I was still in Scientology when that show came out. I was actually still working for Div 6, helping new people get into the church at the time. So I wasn't aware of this show until way later on. There was one episode in particular that really caught my attention. So this episode on the Scientology like Aftermath show with Leah Rememi, it was all about like private investigators and stuff. And it was deep diving on like how much money Scientology has spent on private investigators, like follow these SPs around. And it all just clicked for me right then and there. When I worked in Div 6A, as well as HCO reception, security would show me this book. And it was a book of just like these photos of all these suppressive people, SPs, so that if they came to the building or tried to come inside, I would call security immediately and they'd be escorted out. Now, at the time when I was shown these books, I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was just like normal security like procedure. And it really didn't ring any like alarm bells in my head. But I remember it was like a binder of all these SPs, and it was just like these candid photos of these random people, either taken from like public areas or like taken from people's Facebooks, but it was fucking creepy. So when I watched that episode of Leah Rememi and like Mike Rinder talking about all that, I was so like mind boggled. I was like, that's when it really clicked to my understanding that I was in a cult, and it all added up. And also a ton of the stuff like on the show that they talk about really made sense and made me feel some type of way. It was very emotional watching that show, because I've seen the shitty end of the stick when it comes to Scientology and what it can do to families. I've just never met people that are brave enough to like speak out until I left Scientology. But a lot of people have had really shitty things happen to them in Scientology, and they just never speak up about it. And there's never really any justice. And I don't really like bringing up.
Okay, good. She goes on to tell more of the story of that guy that she was dating at the time. So here's what I found amazing about, noteworthy about that story. She does talk about reading OT3 for the first time and being afraid that she was going to get sick or get pneumonia and die, because that's what Scientology tells you is going to happen to you if you are exposed to the confidential information before you are at that level of the bridge and are ready for it. And then she did realize that, oh, nothing happened to me. Oh, that's weird. Oh, so that's just something they tell us so that we won't look at this information. But that wasn't her big moment. That wasn't her big moment. And I have a similar story of something, when I was in the Sea organization in Los Angeles, having this idea of like, man, if I didn't have to be here, I don't think I ever would be. Or, if I wasn't working for the organization, I don't think I would ever give any money to this organization like the public do. I don't think I would take any time out of my schedule like the public do. I think if I didn't have to be here, I wouldn't be here. That's an example where I tell that story and someone might go, geez, that must have been a big eye-opening moment for you. No, I stayed in the Sea Org for a couple more years. I stayed in Scientology for a dozen more years. It wasn't an eye-opening moment, even though it seems like it should be. And so Isabella has this story of finding out about OT3, but that wasn't even the big moment for her. The big moment came later when I just love the story. So she's working on staff. She's working at the reception area, and she sees that they have these books of pictures of ex-Scientologists who are suppressive persons, SPs. An SP is a suppressive person. It's someone who's an ex-Scientologist who speaks out about Scientology. And it doesn't really occur to her, because she's in a cult, I wonder where all these photos came from. It just doesn't even occur to her to have that thought. And then she sees the Leah Remini show. She sees the whole episode about private investigators being hired by Scientology to stalk and investigate and harass ex-members. And she goes, holy shit. That's where all those photos came from. I was in a cult. I'm not sure why I love this story so much. The thing that to most people would be like some of the most obvious thing that makes her think she was in a cult isn't what did it. It was this other thing. I love the story so much because I think to me it illustrates, I think this is the reason why I love the story so much. It illustrates that to each individual Scientologist and ex-Scientologist, it is always something unique to them. That is the thing that makes them go, oh shit. And you never know exactly what it's going to be. And so her story has the element of secrecy. It has the element of the upper level knowledge and her, her being afraid to become aware of it. And then it has that element, but for her, it has another separate, distinct element of secrecy, which is that we stalk and harass and follow and photograph our ex-members. That's another aspect of secrecy. There are still a ton of people who are in Scientology who would not guess or think or want to believe that that really is how their group handles and treats ex-members. And that for Isabella, it was that made her go, oh no, I've been in a cult my entire life. So anyway, I thought these two videos from Streets and Jessica kind of complemented each other nicely. And I wanted to share that with you. Let's see what else. Oh, it's protest night, guys, for anyone watching in Pinellas County, Hillsborough County, anyone within driving distance of downtown Clearwater, Florida. We'll be out there latest 5:30 p.m. We'll be out there until at least 8:30 p.m. Come on by, come and join us, drive by, honk, have some pizza, have some drinks, come have some fun with us. Even if it's raining, we're prepared for rain, you guys. All right, let's go through some starred comments and we'll wrap this one up. Dawn is, Mom, I loved your interview on growing up in polygamy. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Guys, if you're watching this video right now and you haven't yet watched the interview that I did on the channel, Growing Up in Polygamy, they published part 1 a couple days ago. They're going to publish part 2 tomorrow. It was a blast, and I think you would love watching it. CO Bilf, square footage, straight up and vertical. Yes, the only thing Scientology is expanding on is money in the bank and renovated square feet of buildings. Aaron, I enjoyed your interview. Thank you. Kind people rock. Will has really spread the word, and it is so awesome. Everyone knows him on Hollywood Boulevard. So it is so true. It is amazing. Almost every video William posts now when he walks up to the test center, the people who are outside the test center go, oh my God, it's the guy from TikTok. And what is amazing is that even though I post way less videos than William does on TikTok, and my TikToks get way less views than his do on TikTok, the majority of people who walk up to us while we are protesting in downtown Clearwater say, I know you from TikTok. I'm your fan on TikTok. You're the guy from TikTok. TikTok is uniquely effective at pushing out content to people in the region of the content creator. And so TikTok has become one of the most, if not the most effective way to get the true message of Scientology out to an audience close to you, especially the younger audience. Okay. Northern Girl. I love hearing William telling the story about the popsicle people to the young kids. I believe this is Ken. Can we officially call Scientology a boomer cult? I think so. Journey, a volcano that didn't exist. Yes, the Hawaiian volcanoes did not exist 75 million years ago. Neither do any of the other volcanoes that L. Ron Hubbard said the beings were blown up in. Did you guys know that part of the procedure on the OT levels, when you are telepathically communicating with the beings that are stuck to you who are blown up in the volcanoes, is to isolate on an actual map of the earth with the volcanoes which volcano they were blown up in? Did you know that? None of those volcanoes existed 75 million years ago. Don't think about it too deeply, guys. You might realize that you're in a cult. Okay, Vicky says, have posted the info on the Friday night protest on the Nextdoor app, hoping more residents start showing up for them. That is awesome. Beaker Bop, once you get rid of the Thetans, are they gone for good or do they come back to someone else? How will we know when they are gone? When you get rid of one of your body Thetans, they are supposed to go and pick up a body of their own for the first time. So those BTs have been so sick and nearly dead and unconscious and disoriented that they've never been able to occupy their own body. They've only been able to stick to things, stick to objects, stick to the material, world, and stick to bodies. So they're supposed to get rid of their reactive mind instantly with like 1 or 2 auditing commands. Which is weird because, it takes us good, healthy Thetans hundreds of hours and tens of thousands of dollars to get rid of our reactive minds in Scientology auditing. But apparently with your telepathic solo auditing procedures, you can just get rid of your BT's reactive minds with 1 or 2 commands. So all of a sudden they're Scientology clear. And then they're supposed to leave you, go jump over to the local hospital and get their own body and grow up to be a nice, good, cleared human being, whether they know it or not, whether they know about Scientology or not, whether they remember anything or not. But don't think about it too deeply, guys. You might realize it's all just a bunch of BS. Dino Nuggets. The reality of having wasted so much time is the hardest thing to accept. Happens in multi-level marketing companies too. Yep. Ken says, let's see if Aaron knows who I am based on my avatar. You are Ken, and I will always know it. Amber Vanass, it's very disappointing. I thought I would be able to control things with my mind when I got to the higher levels. Yeah. Constance June, I could not imagine spending all that time and money and then finding out what was on the levels. Yes. I was thinking about it today, and I think another new angle that I might want to take when we're out there protesting in downtown Clearwater is to try and tell the Scientologists what's on the OT levels. Depends on how long I have to talk to them. It's been a while since I tried to feed someone the clear cognition, right? So, and again, you're rolling the dice if you do this with any of your Scientologist friends because they might disconnect from you. But, there's some magical words that you're supposed to say in an auditing session that are supposed to indicate to the auditor that you have very likely just achieved the state of Scientology clear. And those magic words are some of the most confidential things in Scientology. And those magic words are, I just realized I've been mocking up my own reactive mind all along, and I'm not doing it anymore. Mocking up is a Scientology word for creating. So it's basically, I just realized I've been creating my own reactive mind all along, and I'm not doing it anymore. Boom, I just saved you $100,000. So I think it might be time to go back to trying to share the clear cognition. That's called the clear cognition. Cognition in Scientology means a realization about life. All auditing sessions are supposed to end on some sort of a cognition, even if it's, I just realized why I always do X, Y, and Z. Every Scientology auditing session is supposed to end with something like that. And so this is called the clear cognition. And so even if I run into a Scientologist who I know is OT, but they're not OT8, I might want to tell them, hey, that OT8 is just finding out that all your past life memories belong to your body Thetans and not you, right? And there's no OT9 and 10, right? We'll see. We're always trying to come up with new fun things to say when we have a limited amount of time to talk to the Scientologists. Amber Vanass, I used to hear all these great stories from OTs about powerful powers that they can do and how exciting it is. And how exciting it is when I get to that point. Yeah. Northern Girl, I love that she's out there on TikTok and will be joining more of the protests. Yes, she's going to be live streaming them on TikTok as well. Constantine, Isabella is going to do great exposing Scientology to a younger age group demographic. Absolutely. Ren listens, planting seeds of doubt does not mean that they immediately sprout into realization of the truth. Yes, so true, so true. It's almost impossible. There's nothing you can say to a Scientologist that's instantly going to get them to reconsider everything. So, really the best that you can do is plant seeds that later in time will sprout into something. Jojo, we all stay in jobs, relationships, friendships, even when we know they no longer serve us. That's true. Marilyn, this is so true. Sometimes it is something seemingly small that tips the balance. Night Sky Fire, really, really looking forward to part 2 of the Growing Up in Polygamy interview. And they are such kind people. Yeah, they are. Jojo, do we have a theme for the protest this evening? Oh, yes. We're expecting rain tonight. So beach party theme is the theme again tonight. And Painted Bronco, wouldn't most people at Flag be clear? Nope. I understand why you might think that, because Flag is the highest level Scientology organization in the world. Most people at Flag are below the level of clear. I've said you cannot join Scientology at Flag, and that is true. So that might seem like that means if you can't join there, then you wouldn't have lower level Scientologists there. But when I say you can't join, they're not recruiting non-Scientologists to join Scientology at Flag. But like if you're a Scientology family and you live here and you have kids, and then your kids get old enough to study Scientology, your kids can start Scientology at Flag, even though they've never done any Scientology before. Also, if you're a low-level Scientologist anywhere else in the world, you can come to Flag, and once you're cleared, security clearances and everything like that, once you're cleared to come to Flag, you can come to Flag and pay a lot more money for much better service. They say Flag is the only place that you can get perfect Scientology in the world. And so you have a lot of wealthy lower level Scientologists who come to do their lower level Scientology at Flag. Okay, that's it for now. Let's see. We're going to be downtown in about 3 hours. I might have another video I squeeze in before then. We'll see. But thank you to everyone for hanging out with me for now, and I'll see you guys soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.